One big development that did emerge from the sidelines there was the fact that Russia is being excluded from the G-8, a grouping of the world's leading economies. For 20 years, Russia had a seat at the table, but not any longer. For more on the politics of this, I spoke to Jain. He's a former member of the U.S. Secretary of State's policy planning staff, and he's currently an analyst with the German Marshall Fund. I asked him for more insight into how Russia may perceive their ousting from the G-8.
I think in part the Russians, they do value the opportunity to engage with the West and with Europe. Europe remains a key economic partner. The United States is important to the Russians on a host of other issues, including counterterrorism and nonproliferation and other issues that they care about. So I don't think the Russians are keen to break off diplomatic ties to the West. They would have preferred to stay in this construct, to have a chance to be seen on the world stage, getting together to talk about the big global issues. But at the same time, I don't think Putin's that worried about it. He clearly must have predicted that this might happen, that one way of trying to get back or retaliate against Russia is to suspend its participation in clubs like this. So I don't think it's a major obstacle or is seen as very serious if the Russians are not able to participate. I also think Putin probably is betting that this is temporary, that things will change over time as we go forward, and again, the West finds that it's going to need to find other ways to remain engaged with Russia. So
isn't that a good bet?
Well, I think it is. He's probably correct in some ways. I mean, we've seen in other instances in the past where, steps are taken to kind of keep, to isolate or impose sanctions, and then ultimately those are kind of watered down or relaxed over time.
Let me ask you about next steps. It just seems like such a chess match. This move's made, then this move's made, and everyone seems to be making moves. Is there a way to predict what the next move might be?
Well, I think a lot will depend on what Russia ends up doing with the troops that it's stationed outside the borders of Ukraine. If Putin does nothing else, holds on to Crimea, and then tries to find ways of turning down the sort of rhetoric and the animosity, I don't think this will escalate any further. I think that the West, the United States, has made its point, has made it clear to the Russians that there will be consequences or costs, as President Obama keeps saying. But eventually this will sort of become one of several issues on which the Russians and the Americans will disagree. But if, in fact, those troops end up entering into Ukrainian territory at some point over the next several weeks or months, then I think we're going to see another escalation of retaliatory actions by the West. What those will mean, I mean, there will probably be more done in terms of isolating Russia on the economic scene, keeping in mind that those have consequences for American and Western business interests, and particularly in Europe, which is highly dependent on Russian energy exports. So I think it'll be carefully calibrated, but we're likely to see an escalation of sanctions and further attempts to isolate Russia if they try to intervene directly into eastern Ukraine.
Jain, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.
Good. Thanks for having me.